The warm morning sun bathed the marble entrance of the prestigious Hawthorne estate as luxury cars lined the driveway for an extravagant charity gala. Business leaders, celebrities, and politicians gathered beneath glittering white tents while cameras captured every elegant arrival. In the middle of the glamorous crowd stood a single father wearing a neatly pressed but inexpensive suit, holding the hand of his young son. His calm smile disappeared the moment the powerful businesswoman Eleanor Hawthorne looked at him with open contempt. Believing he was nothing more than an ordinary mechanic trying to chase wealth through her daughter, she publicly declared that a man who struggled to raise a child alone could never be worthy of becoming part of her family. Guests whispered, reporters watched, and the little boy lowered his head in embarrassment. No one present imagined that before another sunrise, the same father would quietly become the owner of the billion-dollar empire Eleanor had spent her entire life building. Before this unforgettable story continues, if you believe kindness, humility, and second chances are more valuable than money, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to Kindness Paradise. Your support helps us continue creating emotional stories that remind us never to judge a person's worth by their appearance or their bank account. The man was named Adrian Mercer, and life had tested him more than anyone at the gala could imagine. 8 years earlier he had lost his wife to a sudden illness, leaving him to raise his 6-year-old son, Owen, completely alone. To support his family, Adrian accepted every honest job he could find. He repaired engines during the day, restored antique machinery at night, and spent every free moment helping Owen with homework or reading bedtime stories. Although money was always limited, love was never in short supply. Owen grew into a kind and respectful child because his father constantly reminded him that true wealth was measured by character rather than possessions. Months before the gala, Adrian had met Eleanor's daughter, Victoria Hawthorne, while restoring an antique engine for a historical museum. Unlike many people from wealthy families, Victoria admired hard work more than luxury. She saw a father who never complained despite carrying enormous responsibilities and a man whose quiet integrity inspired everyone around him. Their friendship slowly grew into something deeper, though Adrian often hesitated because he feared the enormous difference between their worlds would eventually create pain for them both. Those fears became reality the moment Eleanor learned about their relationship. As the uncompromising chairwoman of Hawthorne Global Industries, she believed status and fortune determined a person's value. She had spent decades expanding the family empire into one of the country's most powerful corporations and refused to imagine her daughter sharing a future with someone she considered financially insignificant. Without asking about Adrian's character, sacrifices, or dreams, she judged him solely by the modest car he drove and the worn work boots he kept in his garage. Standing among the elegantly dressed guests that morning, Adrian quietly accepted every insult. He never argued because he knew Owen was watching. Instead, he gently placed a reassuring hand on his son's shoulder and walked away with quiet dignity. Many guests interpreted his silence as weakness, but Victoria recognized something entirely different. She saw the strength of a father who refused to let pride destroy his peace. Watching him leave broke her heart far more than her mother's cruel words ever could. Unknown to everyone attending the gala, Hawthorne Global Industries faced a financial crisis hidden behind polished annual reports and impressive public appearances. Years of reckless international expansion had left the company drowning in debt. Desperate to prevent public collapse, Eleanor had secretly negotiated the sale of controlling shares to a mysterious private investment group scheduled to finalize the purchase the following morning. She believed the anonymous buyer would preserve the company and protect the Hawthorne family legacy. Late that afternoon, Adrian returned to the small workshop where he restored antique industrial equipment. After putting Owen's school drawings on the wall and preparing a simple dinner, he received a phone call that changed everything. The caller was the chairman of Meridian Legacy Holdings, a private investment firm founded years earlier by Adrian's late grandfather. Unknown even to Adrian until recently, his grandfather had quietly built a global investment portfolio and placed it in a family trust designed to mature only when the final surviving heir reached a certain age. After years of legal review and international restructuring, the trust had officially transferred control to Adrian just days before the gala. Among its newest acquisitions was the controlling purchase agreement for Hawthorne Global Industries, the very company Eleanor believed she was selling to an unknown corporation. As the golden afternoon sunlight faded across the city skyline, Adrian stood silently beside the workshop window, holding the documents that legally made him the future owner of the empire that had rejected him only hours earlier. He felt no desire for revenge. Instead, he wondered whether true success was measured by finally proving someone wrong, or by showing kindness when the world expected bitterness. By sunrise, he would face the woman who had humiliated him before hundreds of people, not as the poor single father she had mocked, but as the man who now held the future of her family's empire in his hands. The next morning, bright sunlight reflected from the towering glass headquarters of Hawthorne Global Industries as directors, investors, and financial advisors gathered inside the executive boardroom. Eleanor Hawthorne entered with her usual confidence, believing the anonymous investment group would simply finalize the rescue agreement she had negotiated. She had no idea that every document waiting on the polished oak table had already been signed by a different owner. Outside the conference room, Adrian Mercer arrived wearing the same modest suit he had worn the previous day. Nothing about his appearance suggested that he now controlled one of the largest private investment portfolios in the country. Holding Owen's small drawing of the two of them folded inside his jacket pocket, Adrian reminded himself that true strength came from remaining humble when life suddenly changed. As the meeting began, the lead attorney calmly announced that ownership of Hawthorne Global Industries had officially transferred overnight. A large screen displayed the name of the acquiring company, Meridian Legacy Holdings. Confused whispers filled the room. Eleanor smiled confidently, expecting representatives of a powerful international corporation to walk through the doors. Instead, every conversation stopped the moment Adrian quietly entered the room. Several executives immediately recognized him as the single father who had been publicly humiliated at yesterday's charity gala. Shock spread across every face as the attorney respectfully welcomed Adrian as the new majority owner and chairman of the corporation. Eleanor stared in complete disbelief. She searched desperately for an explanation, convinced that some terrible mistake had occurred. The attorney presented the legal documents confirming that Meridian Legacy Holdings had been under the Mercer family trust for decades. Through years of patient investment and careful stewardship, the trust had quietly become one of the nation's strongest financial institutions. Adrian had inherited leadership only days earlier, and with it, the controlling purchase agreement for Hawthorne Global Industries. Every signature had been verified, every regulatory approval completed, and every legal requirement satisfied before anyone inside the company even realized ownership had changed. Victoria watched Adrian from across the boardroom with mixed emotions. She felt proud that the man she admired had achieved something extraordinary, yet she also knew his greatest victory had nothing to do with wealth. Even now, surrounded by executives who had once ignored him, Adrian showed no arrogance. His first request was not to replace leadership or seek revenge but to review the company's employees, pension plans, and community programs before discussing profits. That single decision immediately revealed the difference between someone who chased money and someone who understood responsibility. Eleanor finally found the courage to speak. For the first time in decades, her voice carried uncertainty instead of authority. She admitted that she had judged Adrian solely because he appeared to have very little. She confessed that she had never asked about his values, his sacrifices, or the remarkable father he had become. Looking toward Owen, who quietly waited beside Victoria outside the conference room, Eleanor realized that the little boy she had embarrassed yesterday had shown more grace than many powerful adults she had worked with throughout her career. Adrian looked around the room before calmly explaining why he had accepted ownership. He said the company possessed brilliant employees, innovative ideas, and enormous potential, but it had lost sight of the people whose hard work created its success. He announced that no honest employee would lose a job because of the acquisition. Instead, he would reduce unnecessary executive spending, strengthen worker benefits, and rebuild the company on integrity rather than pride. His words transformed fear into hope throughout the boardroom. If this story has touched your heart so far, please like this video, share it with someone who believes kindness is stronger than revenge, leave a comment, and subscribe to Kindness Paradise for more inspiring stories filled with hope, humility, and second chances. Special request, please comment, true wealth begins with a humble heart. As the meeting ended, Eleanor slowly approached Adrian with tears forming in her eyes. She knew the future of her family's company was no longer the greatest question before her. The real question was whether the man she had publicly called too poor would find room in his heart to forgive the woman who had never taken the time to discover who he truly was. Golden afternoon sunlight streamed through the boardroom windows as complete silence settled over Hawthorne Global Industries. Eleanor Hawthorne slowly walked toward Adrian Mercer, no longer carrying the confidence of a billionaire businesswoman but the humility of a mother who had finally realized how deeply she had hurt another human being. Tears filled her eyes as she admitted that she had spent decades building a corporate empire but had forgotten the values that truly make a family strong. Looking at Owen, quietly standing beside his father, she understood that the little boy had witnessed something no child should ever experience, the humiliation of a loving parent judged simply because he appeared to have less money than everyone else. Adrian remained calm. Wealth had changed his circumstances overnight, but it had not changed his heart. He told Eleanor that the greatest lesson his late wife had ever taught him was that forgiveness is always more powerful than revenge. He explained that buying the company had never been about proving anyone wrong. His only goal was to protect thousands of employees whose livelihoods depended on the business. He refused to let innocent families suffer because of poor leadership or wounded pride. His words filled the room with emotion, and even veteran executives quietly lowered their heads in respect. Victoria could no longer hide her feelings. She walked across the room and embraced Adrian and Owen with tears in her eyes. She had fallen in love with the man long before anyone knew about his fortune because she admired the father who worked tirelessly every day, the man who always placed his son before himself, and the person who never allowed hardship to destroy his kindness. Owen smiled for the first time since the charity gala, realizing that his father had not won because he became wealthy. He had won because he never stopped being a good man. In the weeks that followed, Adrian transformed Hawthorne Global Industries into a company built on compassion as much as profit. Employee salaries were reviewed, educational scholarships were created for workers' children, and emergency assistance programs were established for single parents facing financial hardship. Adrian insisted that every executive spend one day each month working alongside frontline employees so they would never forget whose dedication truly kept the company alive. Productivity increased, employee loyalty reached record levels, and the business became stronger than it had ever been before. Eleanor made a decision that surprised the entire corporate world. She stepped down as chairwoman and publicly admitted the mistakes she had made. At every leadership conference she attended afterward, she shared one unforgettable lesson. The greatest failure of her career had not been a financial mistake but believing that a person's value could be measured by the size of their bank account. She often pointed toward Adrian sitting in the audience and called him the greatest leader she had ever met because he possessed something money could never buy, a humble heart. Months later, Adrian married Victoria in a beautiful daytime ceremony held in a peaceful garden rather than a luxury ballroom. Owen proudly carried the wedding rings while smiling brighter than anyone else. Eleanor welcomed Adrian not as the poor single father she had once rejected, but as the son she was grateful to gain. Looking around at their united family, Adrian silently thanked his late wife, believing she would have been proud to see that kindness had ultimately accomplished what wealth never could. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who believes that love is greater than pride, leave a heartfelt comment, and subscribe to Kindness Paradise for more emotional stories about hope, humility, forgiveness, and second chances. Special request, please comment, a person's heart is worth more than their fortune. As the warm evening sunlight painted the sky in shades of gold, Adrian lifted Owen into his arms and watched their family laugh together beneath the open sky. The empire he had purchased became successful beyond anyone's expectations, but it was never his greatest achievement. His greatest victory was proving that true riches are not found in billion-dollar companies, luxurious homes, or powerful titles. They are found in integrity, unconditional love, and the courage to forgive those who once failed to see your true worth. And from that day forward, everyone who entered Hawthorne Global Industries remembered a simple truth. The richest person in the room is always the one whose heart remains humble.